Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings with a special guest, Lord Hardthrasher. So, he will be here at some point in the next hour, I suspect. Obviously, with the internet being the way the internet is, you can't always rely on people. As we all know from when Ramblings features special guests like Drakidafel and others, people try to arrive when they can, but unfortunately, you can't always rely on scheduling working out, as we often say. But I'm sure he will be here. We just have to wait for the gentleman to show up. But without further ado, let's get into the question. So I will very quickly answer. So let me just do my version check, because then I can turn the bot on. If it's working, it should be working. It said it was working. There we go. Yep, fantastic. So push that button. I am fine, thank you, Brandon Larson. Nice to see you. But yes, so everything should now be working. As per usual, we'll do the Ruinon will be taking care of Discord transference. Reminder, if you are in Discord, please mark your questions with a yellow dot so that Ruinon can pick them up. If your question is not marked with a yellow dot, it will not be considered a question by Ruinon. And for those of you on YouTube, we have the good old-fashioned bot to help with that. So no problems there at all. I will just, if I can remember what the instruction is, to do the commands. I think it's Powder Monkey. I will just do that. If it is, we shall see. It might not be, but I think I've got it right. Let's have a look. If I've done this right, we should have a nice, neat description on how Powder Monkey works. Going in chat. There we go. Jolly good. Hey, for once, this is all going nice and lovely. I can pin that there. So, there you go. So, everyone's got their instructions and the destructions there. Let me just check. Still got a nice stock of people. All is right with the world. And without further ado, I'm just going to check the Patreon before we get started. Just because obviously there will be questions in there. But as per usual, I like to come at them nice and fresh. Because that's how we do ramblings. Oh, unfortunately, it seems like Timu's message was deleted. So that's unfortunate. But it's an Elbonian question. The problem is, it's not really an Elbonian question because, well, I suppose since it's Elbonia, I have to sort of modernize the fleet without making it work, but making it appear to work. So we will get to that. Unfortunately, Timu, I do. Oh, there you are. Oh, it's that's why, because there's a thing. There we go. It's making me confuzzled. No, there we go. Alright, so there's Timu's question. I can answer this one nice and easily. I'll save Brackman's for when we've got a slightly bigger panel. But Timu Locker asks, since Fleet of Oceans is now travelling all over the United Kingdom, has he stumbled across any interesting trains and routes he wasn't aware of? No, not really. A lot of my travelling is buses with some trains here and there, but it's all mostly just standard fare. All of those. And as per usual, when we have special guests, everyone will be on their best behaviour, including me. I've got the duct tape out. It's sat next to me.
Can I commit war crimes?
No.
Oh.
Look, the first time we have a special guest, we're always on our best behaviour. Because then we lure them in, then we trap them when we've got them. Jokes aside, yeah, best behaviour, everybody. Including me. That does include me in that. Fleet, don't interrupt people. You've been...
Remember, don't become him.
Who?
Him.
That doesn't tell... Do you have any idea how little that... Oh. Him. Are you talking about the him you think you're talking about? The red him? Him? That him? Him?
Do not speak of him.
Okay, yes, we are talking about him. Nice reference. Took me a second to get it, but yeah, I got it. Right, so... without further ado, I will quickly answer Steve Clark's question because it's nice and easy. And we can get on that. So, okay, so we've got a YouTube. So I will put the next question from YouTube in there. So that Ruron can then put the next Discord in behind it. So, yes. So, Steve Clark. Team each gets one choice, youngest first, no duplication, on which 1980 technology you would like to have seen pushed to the 60s. So, Foxo got IC transistors, Dragon got nothing, RCD sockets was Ruinon, and ultra large scale circuit integration technology was Dr. Clark's choice. Oh, hello, we have a ping. Oh, yes, thank you, Ruinon. I will put those in just a second. Thank you for reminding me. But in terms of pushing 1980s tech forward to the 60s, I am not really that big up on pushing tech around. I'm not that deep into it, but if I have to pick anything, it would be... I will center that one as well. That is a thing. That is a surprisingly tough question. Because Foxo got transistors already, so she's picked a nice... It's not quite low-hanging fruit, but it is an option that I probably would have gone for.
Solid state small transistors, micro transistors. Specifically.
Right. So... That is... That's a tough one. That is a tough one. 80s to the 60s.
Oh, can I put on another one then?
Nope. You get one. That was the question. You get one. It's not too much steam
can I
within
replace
the...
mine and give you mine?
No, it's not so
Can I
much...
get another one?
It's not so much steam between the ears, Steve. It's just very much outside of my wheelhouse. I'm not really a technical person. I'm into the broad strokes of history rather than the minutiae.
High burn diesel additives.
For mine... That is... Tech specifically from the 80s and the 80s alone. That is really quite tough. Good gravy on a ham basket. Come on, Fleet. In the 80s specifically. Because it has to be tech, it can't be a thing. I suppose if I had a choice and given it to the other thing I know that is 80s that would be useful earlier, lob the space shuttle back a couple of decades. When NASA has the huge budgets. Boom.
The 60s?
Yeah, but it doesn't come about till the 80s. That's what I'd do. Give NASA...
I'm trying to think.
Give NASA a fleet of space shuttles. That would be my thing. Just like build like 10 of the fucking things and just absolutely commercialize the shit out of low Earth orbit early. Yeah.
You know, I'm surprised that was surprisingly intelligent of you.
Hey. I am occasionally, usually, mostly good at things like this.
No comment.
No, you can. You keep an eye out for the guest, by the way, in Ramblings. I'm keeping an eye out myself, but just let me know if he appears suddenly like a flashbang. So we have a decent sized panel. So I'll work through some of the other questions. I'm leaving the Albonia question until we've. Actually, you know what? No, I'll do the Albonia question now because then it's done.
Yeah, save that one.
Okay, I'll save it. Right. Minecraft Watcher asks, what if Mao had died during World War II? Let's say the Japanese army had caught him in a village near the front. You won't see a disintegration of the Communist Party. There are other people who can replace Mao, but it might not result in a total victory in the
okay.
Post-war.
Can we also shelve that one?
Why?
Because that's one I would want our resident Chinese historian on.
Oh. Oh, yes, of course. And of course, you know, who's the resident Chinese historian again?
Away?
Oh, he's right here.
They are in the VC, but that does not
but they're not
mean...
speaking.
Yeah, it does not mean they're here.
Whoops.
I'm not speaking because I am woefully ill-equipped to answer this question.
Wait, you're supposed to crypt out of all of us.
And we could have...
Leave the question for later until I do a little bit more read-up.
Okay, we'll save that for now. Knight6831, would the de Havilland Vampire have fared any better than the Gloucester Meteor? I mean, they're both jet aircraft of that era. They're both fairly...
better in terms of what?
Yeah, they're both decent airframes with, for the time, reliable jet engines. They've both got a relatively effective gun armament for the period. They've both got enough legs on them, by that I mean range, to make them effective. So, yeah, the Vampire has no reason to be less unduly effective than the Meteor.
I'd actually argue it was almost more.
Less.
No, because the reason why I'd argue more Fox is it has a longer, more storied service life with more air forces.
And also the Vampire doesn't have some of the issues that it takes the Meteor a while to correct. The snaking, for example. But again...
The snaking's fixed by 46.
Yes, but...
Vampire's issue mostly just comes down to the limited option in terms of engine.
Yeah, but again, that's why I prefaced, by saying they're jet aircraft of an era, of a design lineage. They are roughly contemporaneous with each other. There's no significant advantage one has over the other in terms of Vampire and Meteor.
Well, actually, no. Vampire does have a number of things. Primarily, one fact that the Vampire was actually more capable of being changed into a carrier base plane. That's why you get the Sea Vampire. Whereas Sea Meteor. But Sea Meteor, on the other hand, while it was developed, was deemed to be inefficient for carrier operations. Whereas Sea Vampire was better suited for it.
Well,
also,
yes.
The fact that it had a centrally mounted engine instead of in two effectively nacelle housings overall provided better avionics.
Yes, that is true, but in this sort of... It's one of those things where, yes, I see where you're coming from, but I'm also sat here kind of going...
It's also the fact that Meteor, especially later in its life, like in Korea, could effectively turn into a multi-role aircraft. The Vampire was
the Vampire was multi-role.
Not to the extent the Meteor.
Yeah, the Vampire was very good as a multi-role. Well, I will admit, in summary, it's not as good as, say, the Mark 8 Reaper.
Look, fundamentally speaking, the entire issue of the Vampire as a multi-role aircraft is that it is really tiny, with a little bit of an anemic engine. The Meteor definitely would have been a much better choice as a multi-role, just out of the sheer fact that it has It is a larger airframe. It could carry more. It has 2 engines that has higher thrust potential, and it's more logical for a meteor to be a multi-role in terms of the way the airframe came out. However, naturally speaking, Meteor was originally not designed as a multi-role aircraft. And the Vampire is. Hence the reason why the Vampire was the premier multi-role aircraft, while the Meteor remains as the air superiority option for
Also,
the
I will
RAF.
throw another thing on top of that is another thing that, while it was not initially designed for it, ended up being better is the Vampire actually proved to be the better trainer aircraft. With still being used into the 90s as a training vehicle.
Naturally, a tiny
Yes, but
aircraft
that's
with
more of
small engines.
But
It helps.
that's more to do with the Meteor's antiquated airframe.
This is why it's why I'm saying there are advantages to both.
Yeah, like I said, as I've been saying
See,
for this.
in period when they're valid fight.
No, Fleet, you said there was no real advantages either or. They're contemporaneous.
No, yes, that was part of what I said, but the part I was going to mention was the jet aircraft of an era.
No, you did say that, and
Yes, I did.
that's not quite right either.
But to put it simply, the Meteor has the advantages before you get to transonics. When you start going transonic, the Vampire starts showing its finesse.
Mm-hmm.
You want to say the Meteor is still an airframe from the early 1940s. And by the 50s, it's showing that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Nope. Still not yet. So next, let me just have okay. There we go, officer. Opinions on the one-off USS Carronade. Do you think it's purposely designed and built for low intensity and brown water actions, especially in Vietnam? Why didn't they build more of it? That's your question. Literally describes USS Carronade. That's yes, she is designed for amphibious landings or operations close to shore. That's, and in particular, brown water operations and close to shore operations can include operations in the littoral and inside river operations. As for why they didn't build more of her, probably because a ship that size is almost too much ship for the sort of operations they were envisioning her doing. Even at 1,500 tons, she's still a bit big for really close-in littoral work. And despite her heavy armament, you could actually do the same jobs that she was going to do with her 5-inch and 40mm Bofors guns. First of all, the need for rocket artillery, for rocket launchers to support amphibious landings kind of... It didn't go away, but there were better ways to get equivalent fires from naval vessels as the Cold War went on. And in terms of the 5-inch dual-purpose gun and the Bofors mounts, again, they found that they could achieve similar fire support capability for littoral work with much smaller craft. So you see the proliferation of the United States' brown water fleet during the Vietnam War, and they realized they could get 105mm guns mounted in modified Chaffee turrets, I think they were. And they proved as, yes, they're not quite as much bang as the 5-inch was, nor was it as, rapidly loaded because it's not an automatic, reloading system like the 5-inch has. I'm not talking auto-loading, but, the 5-inch, the hoist, the shell handling, all that stuff. God, my brain is not working today. But the, yeah, there were basically there were better ways to fulfill all the roles the ship was envisaged to fulfill that the United States Navy thought of. And so they chose not to continue with the concept. Okay, so... Boop. YouTube Minecraft Watcher, what is the panel's favourite separatist warship class from Star Wars? I'm torn between the Providence and the Subjugator. Munificence. I'm a Munificent Matt fanboy all the way. The swarm of angry, cheap MacGuffins with all of the turbo lasers. I cannot resist incoming fire, but I'm going to put out so much fire, I'm going to drown you in a swarm of red lasers.
Dragon, what ship did Count Dooku use?
Do you mean in combat when he was operating under... as Operational Fleet Commander? Because
Operational Fleet Command.
he had a few different flagships. What did it look like? Was it long and spindly? Was it a donut?
Chonka.
Chonka. Did it have, like, sort of wings that came out either side?
Yes.
Oh, Munificent fanboy. Hello!
Okay.
Yee, Munificent. Dragon, have you got a favorite CIS ship? Excellent.
Are you sure that was a munificent for Count Dooku?
He did.
I thought he used the Providence.
He flew his flag on. He did. He flew his flag on. Basically, I think the only ship type that Count Dooku didn't fly his flag from was the supply ships, the ones that look like two halves of a circle with like a bridge in between them. He had as his flagship at one point or another during the Clone Wars Munificence, Recusants, Providences, Lucrehulks. I think he flew his flag from basically everything.
Who's this?
Count Dooku.
Dooku.
No, he didn't. Dooku never had a flagship.
He did. He had a Providence. He used as a flagship.
Not really. He more jumped from ship to ship.
Yeah, that's what I like.
But no, as it also, he was never he was more when he was on board the warships. He's more as basically a representative of the CIS Senate than necessarily someone in command.
Fair enough, but I was
Effectively having the First Sea Lord of the Admiralty standing on your bridge going, right, come on, make sure you do this.
Greetings, Hardthrasher. Pleasure to have you here.
Evening, how are we doing?
Fine, thank you.
You've got the lucid voice, which is the
Hey,
invisible hand
famous
sister,
one.
which I might have did something with, but
Right.
Sorry, what?
Oh, sorry, we're in the middle of a question. we're just wrapping that up. Right, I better put the other Patreon question in, because now we can actually get to that. Now we've got the full size of the panel. Marvellous.
Hello, Hardthrasher.
Hello, how are we doing?
Not bad. I really like your videos.
Oh, thank you.
they're going to say, Foxo, careful, do not fangirl too hard.
You have coined the term Downing's wood chipper, just in parlance on the internet.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Oh, dear. Right, okay, so we've got that one. That's the next question we'll deal with. I think we've wrapped up the favourite ships. I think I suppose I'll give Hardthrasher and Dr. Clark a chance to have their say. Do you gentlemen have a favourite separatist warship from Star Wars at all?
Oh, good. No, I think it's the honest truth.
Fair enough. Alex?
Whichever one I'm currently blowing up is usually my favourite, but we'll leave it to one side.
A good doctrine.
Oh. Right, okay. So, Patreon question from Brackman, who asks, it's now the 1960s. Despite the odds, you remain... Hang on, I'm just going to check. Did he ask another one before this about the Elbonian Navy? I'm just going to check quickly. Nope, it's not a continuation. Right, jolly good. Right. Brackman asks on Patreon, it's now the 1960s. Despite the odds, you remain in command of the battered but battle-hardened Elbonian Navy, a force that has pulled off a series of improbable victories. However, time and technology are moving on, with new doctrines emerging and innovations like guided missiles, jet aircraft, and nuclear propulsion entering the scene. You've been given a single directive by your government. Modernize the fleet. Where do you begin? What do you prioritize? What do you discard from the old order? Well, with this being Albonia, we all know what that means.
Let's just say we are trying to undermine Albonia, right?
I would have... Well, if it wasn't... Well, I suppose if it wasn't Albonia, that you wouldn't... I suppose the fact that it is Albonia kind of makes that a given, I would suspect.
A second, I'm off to quickly checking my chicken burgers if how they're cooking.
All right, Alex. So
That sounds terrible, but I meant to eat earlier, but literally the meetings didn't end till 5:20. So I literally chucked them in, and then I'm late. So I came here, and I'm hearing a beeping from the cooker. So yeah, I'm going to the cooker.
It wouldn't be ramblings without someone running off in an emergency to go and grab food. Ah, classic. Right, oakley dokley. So, well, first things first. We basically have to somehow discredit the concept of the aircraft carrier. In particular, the Katabar aircraft carrier.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Well,
We
do you? Because if you go and buy the right aircraft carrier, you're going to bankrupt the country pretty quick. I mean, I'm thinking Argentina had the Vicente de Mayo, which they would have bought it about the 60s, I think. And by the 1980s, I mean, it was basically a millstone around their neck. They couldn't afford to run it, and it kept the rest of the Navy basically in port.
Yeah, she was...
That's more about them. That's more about them than it is about the carrier design. Actually, if you really want to be clever, what you do is you ask the Royal Navy if you can buy things like, well, it's 1960s. It's a bit late, so you can't buy a light fleet carrier. You can't buy... I mean, you cannot buy... There's no implacables or even... Is there Victorious left?
Yeah, Victorious was still there, I think, for a bit. Yeah.
Can we buy Victorious? She looks like she's a great carrier because she's just been through a massive refit. She's an absolute nightmare, but she'll look great. And that's the point of the Albonia thing.
Yeah.
You don't, rather than discredit Katabar, just buy the really bad Katabar options.
Yeah, that's one thing we can do. So we'll buy one carrier.
Try and buy illustrious class carriers if you can. I'm not in 1960s. I think there is another couple wandering around sitting in Royal Navy Reserve, so you can buy them and you can put them through conversions like the Victorious.
I mean, we could go one better than that, Alex, to get an even more expensive option. We could buy USS Enterprise because she's just about to be broken up, as it turns out.
No. Yorktowns are far easier to modernise than a Victorious illustrious class.
Oh, yeah.
You have to remember there's the layers of armour and things which are built into the British fleet carrier, which aren't built into the American carrier design.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, no. The only illustrious and implacable left is Victorious. All the others were broken up in the 50s.
No.
Dang!
The problem is, Ruinon Stobar isn't really a concept in the 60s. Stobar doesn't come in until...
Stobar isn't a concept until the Russians make it one.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't, because they can do short takeoff, but they can't do vertical landing.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons why why their very interesting Yak 38 has the issues it has.
Yeah, Yak 38.
Truly special aircraft.
Indeed.
It is a truly special aircraft. It's one of those aircraft that deserves to have its specialness as far away from anyone who actually has to use the thing as possible.
Poor Yakolov, not a great way for them to end. But
No.
They were trying. It's like, in a nicest way, the scariest thing I've heard is people keep going to me, oh, the Russians are planning to develop a new generation of Stovall aircraft for their new to fly off their LHDs, and I'm going, please don't. Please don't.
I think they should give it a try. I really do think they should give it a go.
No, that's just cruel.
I mean,
That's just being cruel and wanton punishment.
Yep.
That's just
I
nasty.
feel like they've earned it at this point, though. I think
at this point we should all stand back and watch and encourage them
I
in
think
that
at a
direction.
certain point you're just being cruel to the Russian pilots. There is the nation might be annoying. Yes, I agree. I'm never going to be Putin's fan under any circumstances. But why do I want to wish pain on poor defenseless Russian pilots?
Poor old Vladimir Vladimirovich in his Yak 38 rebuild that they've dragged out of the museum to use as a test bed.
What one can but hope.
It could go worse. It could be, what was it? The Super Yak,
The 141,
Super
you mean?
38 they planned. Was it the Yak 42? or something that they were planning. They were working on one when they went completely bust.
Do you mean?
Oh, the supersonic one.
You mean 141?
Yes.
Yeah.
141.
No.
Yeah. Might be. Was it?
Yeah, 141.
Fleet said that so confidently. I now don't trust it.
I'm looking at it.
I thought it was okay. Yes, we'll go with Yak 141. You're looking at it. I'm going to presume it's on Wikipedia, whereas I'm currently in front of a cooker. But the thing is, they'll probably get that out of the design thing and try and modernize that and try and build it.
Yeesh.
And I can think of easier ways of recreating a new aircraft which will have the title Widowmaker.
We are
fact-
getting slightly off the point, which
Yes,
was
a little bit.
what ships would you buy?
Because we are talking about Soviet naval aviation, and if I'm going to really muck up the carrier, I'm going to buy a very expensive Katabar carrier and then put Yak 38s on it.
Yeah, I think that's a genius idea. I think that's exactly
And
what
I
you should
will
do with
point
that.
out, Hardthrasher,
Have any of the American cruiser carriers around still?
No, not yet.
No.
But
No.
also, we're going to get to the surface fleet. But also, Hardthrasher, you have joined a show called Random Ramblings. This is kind of what
No,
we do.
true. Yes,
This
sorry,
is
not
kind
going
of-
with the spirit of the thing.
This is kind of what we do.
Oh,
It's more that you have
Oh.
the thing you have to remember for me is usually I do have a random reason for my thought which gets back to topic. It's what people who watch my channel have started to work out after watching. I go off on rambles, but I come back and they suddenly go, "Oh, good lord, that related to the topic." Yes,
Yeah.
it did.
then they were converted at this point. Because you had the USS Saipan and Wright, which would have been an amusing option because they were still in service till the 80s, but they were converted to communications ships, not carriers.
So for the airborne early warning on that carrier, I'm gonna buy.
Gannets.
No, not Gannets. Gannet's too capable. We want the thing that comes before Gannet, AEW. We want the piston engine powered, because it's cheap, and we'll say we can get a large fleet of them so we can have reserves. But in reality, it's gonna hang a millstone around our neck. And because of the carrier we're buying, it's going to be probably the only AEW platform we can operate off said carrier.
Well, no, you could go completely the other way, and you could go, look, why don't we adopt Sea King? It's a superb AEW platform. It's so good that the Royal Navy's about to adopt it. And it's shit.
Was Crow's Nest being adopted by the RN in the 60s?
Maybe not. Maybe it was a bit later. But a helicopter-based AEW is completely useless and doesn't work at all, and is very expensive to boot, but looks cheap on paper. So if you can persuade them to just grab any old radar, shove it in the back of a Huey, for God's sakes, and stick it on the deck, and Hueys are cool. El Jefe
True,
would
that
love
is
one
an
of those.
option, but you could do something even crueler. See, we've got HMS Victorious, right?
Uh-huh.
Right.
If we buy the American airborne early warning aircraft, that can't actually use the British catapult on Victorious.
So
that would be a
basically,
problem.
we buy the latest and greatest
So we
E1
buy,
Tracer.
we buy something that looks great
Yeah.
on paper, but it's actually going to completely muck them up because they'll never be able to use it.
So we'll buy the absolute top-of-the-line E1 Tracer platform, which we can't actually use off our carrier.
Perfect. The ideal.
Oh,
Buy it with CIA money.
yes. So we've got Yak 38s and E1 Tracers as our air wing, which is, which are our airborne early warning and fighters and strike aircraft. Yippee. Honestly, I think we do that and we don't have any carrier-borne ASW helicopters because we'll say our frigates will deal with that. Basically because we sort of, remove that element from the equation as sort of another way to millstone the carrier.
I mean, that is going to be a whole thing. Is you get your carrier,
Or
you've
you
got to
could
have some
buy the
kind of
Maritime
escort.
Patrol ASW version of the Sentry.
Or
There is the tracker.
you could buy the Shackleton.
Ooh.
The Shackleton can't take off from a carrier.
Yeah.
No, well,
Exactly.
but I mean,
exactly.
not yet.
But imagine having the cat fleet to find one, and then
How
you
do
have
you
the
know till you
Shackletons
try?
overhead come
could have
down
just
to do
take
the
off.
ASW.
One at a time, folks. One at a time.
Oh no, that poor Shackleton frame.
Folding wings on a Shackleton, anyone?
We're probably also gonna. I said we'll probably have to include rocket-assisted takeoff at least.
yes.
Oh, yeah, we've got to have some of that. El Jefe would go for the rocket assisted takeoff.
And the thing is,
that was a trial. That was trial.
Oh,
wasn't it,
no.
the Shackleton?
And the thing is, folks, because we're
Yeah.
buying these big ASW aircraft, and because of the size of it, we only have to have the one on the carrier because of the capability. We can have 3 total. 1 on the carrier, 1 on land as a spare, and 1 doing something else. El Jefe's private transport, I don't know.
I need you to complete some better.
We could definitely.
Albania doesn't need a nuclear deterrence now, because our large AW aircraft can also carry nuclear weapons.
Oh, no. Well, I am going to get to
I mean-
that. I am going to get to that.
Not anywhere quickly, but
Oh.
yes, I suppose that is technically
Oh,
true.
no, Benno, that's too capable. Benno, that's too capable, and Victorious can actually launch that.
Yeah.
It's getting AW, it's
Well-
too capable, and Victorious can actually launch it off their catapults.
But also remember, Fleet, we have got to have plausible deniability.
Well, yeah. Whereas with E1 Tracer, we get plausible deniability, and if we want to launch them, we have to spend millions refitting Victorious. Again! So what we're gonna... So then we lean into the wrong lessons for cruisers. So we go... guns are still the primary element of our cruisers, and missiles are secondaries. It is the gun that makes the difference, not the missile. So we build cruisers that are primarily gunboats, with maybe a token twin or single arm launcher for probably Sea Slug. Because while Sea Slug is a missile that works in open ocean, it's somewhat short-ranged, and if you try to use it as a dual-purpose missile, which it technically can do, it tends to have problems, and it's also shorter range than the guns. But we only have a single-arm launcher, so the reaction time and salvo usage are going to be awful. Or we have a twin-arm launcher for Sea Slug, and we only have 1 illuminator, so we can only use 1 missile at a time. Either or works.
One of my favourite stories about the Falklands War is that the task force sailed with a Marconi engineer on board to who was tuning up. I think it was Sea Slug, it might have been Sea Dart, and he was due to get dropped off at Ascension because they had all the problems with it on the way down. He basically he literally floated around in the middle of the battle, clearing salt crust off the sensors so that the damn thing would open and fire. Fair play to him because
Oh,
he
I mean,
didn't have to be
that's-
down there.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're all being too nice and too favourable to Albonia. If you want to buy gun cruiser, go for Trekrona class from Sweden and buy the Swedish missile, which was so bad even the Swedes didn't buy it.
I was going to say either that would work, or potentially Cleveland class.
No.
The Clevelands have just been refitted.
No,
Or you
they're-
buy Sverdelovs.
Sverdlovs are pretty effective gun cruisers, though.
Nah,
Sverdelovs.
buy a Tiger.
Yes!
Poor Tiger.
But go on, Foxo.
The issue is the town class are actually quite good hulls. I'd go for a Sverdlov because they're very quickly approaching end of life. They don't have much upgrade potential, but they are still
1960s?
Yeah.
They're not.
No, the Sverdlovs have a lot more life left in them, and they've got a lot more good
Well,
potential.
They're only built in
small
the
life.
1950s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
The
but
towns,
useful life.
honestly, are the ones that's reaching surface life.
No, Dr. Clark
And
has
also-
basically hit the nail on the head. The Triconas are
Also-
small cruisers. They have very little upgrade potential. And then again, there's also the Swedish missile, which I'm sure he's now about to explain.
they had a missile project which actually got turned down by the Swedish Navy. But the more important thing is that Trekronas have 7 6-inch guns. They have a single triple turret forward and 2 twin turrets aft.
Ouch, my fire control.
Yeah, the Triconas.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Tricona are fun. They build them the way they do because they have some spare 6-inch guns sitting around.
Yep.
They literally had some spare 6-inch guns around. They originally calculated they were going to have 18, and then they realized they had 7. Well, they had 14, so they built two. And you sit there and go, yes, and you put 4 guns aft in 2 twin turrets and 1 triple turret forward.
Ah, the dispersion differences from twins and triple turrets. Glory be.
And yeah, they're split up and all these things. It's just it's just fun. And yes, the Swedes did have a missile system in development as well, and it's they actually did sell them in 1970 to the Chileans. So you could actually buy the Tre Chrono class probably itself
Yeah, just
and
buy
get it modernized.
Yeah, a pair of cruisers with the best anti-aircraft builds, because as we all know, El Jefe, the Swedes only make good things. Look at the Bofors. Isn't the Bofors
And they
nice?
do, and these guns these are all Bofors guns. They are armed with Bofors 40mm. They have Bofors 20mm, and they have Bofors 6-inch guns.
Isn't it nice,
It's
El
an
Jefe?
entire Bofors gun suite.
Don't you like the Bofors guns, El Jefe? I know you like the Bofors guns. Just sell it on that.
You have to paint them gold.
Yes, paint them gold. Appeal to El Jefe's sense of
Or you paint them black with flames up the side. That will also work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were how do I put this politely? So the missile system, and there's a reason why on Wikipedia the missile list of Bofors is incomplete. Their early missiles were intriguing. And not necessarily in the best way. But if we're going for a 1960s, there are multiple options from Bofors. I don't really wish to name it because I feel it's kind of like the Blackburn. If I name it, people are going to go look it up, and then they're going to realize that Bofors was really not always that.
This isn't
amazing.
the RB08, is it? Or is that a different one?
It's worse than the RB08.
Right, I was going to say, because I just remember the RB08's the one I remember because it's mounted on Smalan's torpedo tubes, which is a weird and unique thing.
Yeah, that's their surface-to-surface missile system.
Right.
Their surface-to-surface missiles are interesting. Go and look up Bofors anti-aircraft missiles.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, in terms of destroyers, I'm basically going to go to El Jefe and say Framcan is all you need. Because while it's technically useful on paper, and it is, not only is the drone that it comes with only working 50% of the time, so its reach out and touch capability that isn't ASRock is not the best, it's also a platform that, while in theory is cheap and we can have lots of them, it has a very limited long-term shelf life and will rapidly deteriorate in capability as submarines get quieter and the guided missile destroyer and guided missile frigate proliferate.
No. Far too kind.
I think we've also missed out something. I think we missed out something fun as well. If we're buying if we are buying the Tre Chrono class in 1960s, we could also suggest that perhaps we also need to get something to provide localized support for our forces should they be inshore, should they need gunnery support ashore, and that there is the perfect system available that would actually fit in with the Tre Chrono class, sitting there in Sweden waiting to be procured.
Good lord.
The Spheric class.
Oh.
Maybe I've lost him.
We buy the... Whoop. We did. Oh, God, we did.
But
Yeah.
No, I would suggest
No.
battle class destroyers.
No, they're good.
Yeah, but they're also being laid up by the Royal Navy is finally decommissioning them after relatively hard service lives. They have potential to be upgraded, but who are you going to get the upgrade from?
No, the reason the Royal Navy's are laying up is not because they're bad or things, it's because the Royal Navy's made the decision that because they've got a different 4.5-inch turret, it's easier to have the Darings without coming into service, etc., as your large destroyer. If you want to go something down the route of something which is useless, you go for the weapon class. At that
Well,
point,
yes,
not
actually,
the,
true.
not the battle,
Weapons
not
would
the battle,
also
not
work
battle.
if we can get them, but
The weapon class are far better than the battles for that. The battles, the only reason the battles are being uplayed up is because the Royal Navy decided that replacing, putting the new 4.5-inch gun just wasn't. It was too much money for what they needed in terms of destroyer numbers. When they had all the war emergency destroyers to use, they didn't need. They could more easily upgrade. What they were converting other destroyers to ASW escorts. The battles were just It was not that the battles weren't useful still. It's that the battle's gun was just it's a pain to maintain it when you're not maintaining on anything else.
So yeah, the weapons would definitely work. Just because the reason why I was initially looking at battles because they already sold some to Pakistan and Iran. So
Yes,
we can go, yes, well, if they sell to them, they'll sell to us. But if we can get the weapons, even better. Britain will
Pakistan is
probably be
still.
going,
I
you
hope
want
that there
to
might
buy
be a
these?
battle. There might be a battle class hull sitting somewhere in the world for me to go see.
Because I'm sure if you offered the Royal Navy the money, they'll probably go, you want to take these off our hands for more than scrap value?
Yeah, we'll take them.
Sure,
We'll
have
take
it.
them, yeah. The Royal Navy's always been very pragmatic when it comes to these things. Don't tell the Treasury how much you're paying for it.
No, do not tell the Treasury. Hardthrasher's having connection issues, so he will be back. He's just, I think he's probably doing the old hit the router with a sledgehammer until it works maneuver.
I would hope you're not hitting a router with a sledgehammer. That tends to result in no more router.
So
This could explain why the fleet has such IT issues if he does that to his router.
it was a turn of phrase.
Yes, it is, but still.
Right. So let me think.
But the point still stands. Don't hit your router with a sledgehammer.
Yeah. So I'm looking. So I think Dr. Clark's right. We buy the Spheres for shore bombardment because it's definitely something we absolutely need.
Yeah.
And we could probably get a package deal for the Tricoronas and the Spheres.
Yeah. And Sweden probably buys multiple of the more of the Smaland sisters.
The Halland, Halland.
Smaland class sisters, yes.
Yeah.
I know, but I always want to call them the Smaland class sisters because I've been around Smaland. I haven't been around.
I'm trying to think in terms of frigates. Because we're talking about this is the year when the frigate really does start to come in. I'm just trying to think. Really? Frigates that look good but aren't good. Because the frigates that look good in this period are good.
Whitby class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would
Whitbees.
probably do it.
Whitbees.
Type 12s. Yeah.
Why?
Have you looked at them?
I am looking at them. Twin 4-5.
Have you noticed some minor problems with them?
30 knots. Radars. Good sonar. 4-5. Bofors. Limbo submarine mortar.
Look at their upgrade path. Look at their engine. Whitbees look good on paper.
Hmm.
And that's the whole point. It has to look good on paper.
Yeah, I suppose we could actually buy... We could add 4 or 6 Whitbees to the build-out. Buy an additional 6 into the end.
I'm sure, once again, Royal Navy wouldn't say no, because we're getting more money to build these. It's keeping shipyards going, gives more money to the economy.
Mm-hmm.
It would also mean you would actually end up with, like, 14 Whitbees being built total, which would be interesting.
Yeah. So, now then. Now comes the interesting bit and the bit I've been waiting for. Before we get to the submarines, I want to deal with the nuclear deterrent. And I am going to approach this from 2 ways. One that puts a middle finger up at the Air Force, and is something that El Jefe would probably encourage because it's, in fighting. Yeah, in fighting. And another that seems good on paper, but is bad in practice.
You're going to use nuclear depth charges?
No. Oh, no. We are going to have a...
Salmon warmed mines?
No.
Nuclear Talos?
No. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the 2-phase solution for Elbonia's nuclear deterrent at sea. The Martin P6M Seamaster and the Project 629 Golf class diesel-powered ballistic missile submarine. With these twin weapon systems, Elbonia's nuclear deterrent will be secured forever. Never mind.
What plane did you say?
Never mind that one of them is a seaplane that can only operate from water and has a limited endurance compared to other strategic bombers, and that the other
You said
one,
P6M, right?
P6M Seamaster.
Yeah.
Right. I think you might have a minor issue with that.
Yeah.
While they were initially designed with the idea of being nuclear capable, when they were built, they never were.
Exactly. It's part of the point.
So they're not a nuclear. So it's not a nuclear plane you can really use, I'm afraid.
Well, no, it's not. But we don't tell El Jefe that. We say, of course, you know, they're built for... we say they were built with it in mind, El Jefe.
Wait,
No,
at
then
that point, that's outside.
He goes, so then why did the people who make them say these are not actually good for this job that we want you that you wanted to do?
Because they didn't have our unique circumstances, El Jefe. They didn't think like we did. They were too land-focused.
You can actually know there are 6, which are... The 6 pre-production models could. The 8 production models couldn't.
But also,
So
all of
you've
those
got-
were
So
scrapped. though.
you can buy 14 if you buy them before they're scrapped. They're scrapped, fairly soon. But most of them are scrapped at before. Yeah. Most of them are scrapped in 1960.
So if we ninja in, we can get them at a low price as well.
Not necessarily, but
And the fact is, you still
Maybe.
have the production facilities because the contracts for more were cancelled, and the contracts were for a further 16. So you could theoretically take them over and get them built to the same standards as the pre-production model. So you could have 22, which are actually nuclear capable, and 8, which are not.
Excellent. We have a nice force to carry Elbonia's bomb-based nuclear deterrents. The Seamasters will dominate all. And then, of course, to make sure that we at least have a biad, we have the Golf-class ballistic missile diesel-electric submarine. And you know it's good, because the Russians built 23 of them, so it must be good. Never mind the fact...
I still think you should get the Buccaneer instead.
Well, the problem is with the Buccaneer is that it... Well, yes, we can't launch it from our carriers.
I think your problem with all of this is, though, where are you getting nuclear weapons from?
I think Albonia has nukes in the lore. And even if we don't, it's just buying more capability that we don't actually have, which El Jefe will want to parade saying around that he has it, even if he doesn't.
Yeah. So in the original question and how everyone else has treated it, they're a minor nuclear power as well.
right.
There we are. So yes, this is... So yeah,
Which is why in the ground-based version they end up buying nuclear artillery.
Yeah. So, Hardthrasher, what do you think of using the Martin P6M Seamaster for the airborne part of the Elbonian Navy's nuclear deterrent?
I can't see how this could possibly go wrong. Can we put an AIM-9 on it just for fun?
Yeah, I'm sure we can. You can see that it could defend itself.
You should have bought a battleship so that he could argue to acquire nuclear shells.
Oh no, we'll acquire nuclear shells for our 6-inch guns. That's what we'll do.
The more interesting thing is Glen Martin Company goes defunct in 1961, so we could theoretically buy the company as well
Oh no.
and move construction to Elbonia, so we could be continuing to iterate on the design and keep it current.
Hang on, wait a minute. I've just remembered something. Oh yes, we could. if we're quick. We could build a force to defend those bombers that could operate alongside them if we're quick. Oh yeah, they are. They're held in reserve till 62. We could buy the remaining Convair Sea Darts to escort the Seamasters.
You could.
Because see, now they will never be able to stop our fighters because our fighters don't need runways. Genius.
No one. I think you've missed the point I've made about you buying the Martin Company.
I'll probably have. Go on, Dr. Clark, please.
Anyone worked it out? Because if Martin Company's bought, you never get Lockheed Martin.
Oh.
Because the mergers, Lockheed never ends up owning the Martin name. So, yeah. You change history in a very interesting way.
But then, of course, to get to the other side of the nuclear deterrent, the Golf-class ballistic missile submarines. In their original form, they have to fire while surfaced. They are diesel-electric, meaning they are noisier. Oh, so given that they are... Yes, they're technically more quiet when running quiet, but, well, they have to surface to fire in their original form, and even when they're refitted, the missiles they have are not exceptionally long-range weapons. And by the time they are refitted, which Albonia will probably do, they are noisy diesel boats that a nuclear or conventional boat of the 70s and 80s will hear coming 10 miles away.
But they're still a serious threat, though.
Oh, they are, but I had to pick something that would be not be the best outcome, but still be something El Jefe could go, look what I've got! Even if it's really not a threat unless you drop all the clangers. In terms of attack boats... 60s. We could do worse than buy some Russian Novembers. They are fast, but they're noisy. They are very noisy. And their Russian reactors do have a tendency to leak radiation. A little bit.
I think you couldn't go too far wrong trying to talk to them about the last marks of German U-boat, because it was good enough for the Germans. They look okay on paper. By this point, they'll be completely obsolete. But El Jefe quite like to have a U-boat. I mean, that's quite up his street.
There are a few Type 21s knocking around.
You could probably do something with it to make it, appeal to him. Paint it entirely pink or something, so that because you've always got to think about your metaphorical approach with El Jefe. He's a pretty straightforward bloke, and you can talk about all the specs until the cows come home. But it was good enough for the Germans. We'll get his attention, and we painted it bright pink, and he'll certainly come and have a look.
And we could also point out the fact that these modern submarines have, they didn't really think about it. Because, you see, the Type 21 still has those crucial 20mm guns, El Jefe. So we can use it to shoot up, we can shoot things with it.
You can shore bombard.
Yeah.
Can't fucking do that on a modern, American or Soviet sub.
Can we just use El
You can also replenish it at sea far easier than you can with the torpedoes.
Yeah.
The boat doesn't have to come back to the harbour. You can replace the ship from a secret supply ship.
We can use the Seamasters that aren't nuclear capable. Yeah. We can use the Seamasters to resupply the Type 21s with torpedoes. Oh, this is so cursed. This is so cursed. Oh, God. How did we get here? Oh, good Lord. Let me think. So we've covered... So... Carriers, carrier aircraft, cruisers, destroyers, frigates, nuclear deterrent, attack boats. Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Oh my God. Oh my God. Right, okay. Next question. Typical gunnery officer. Now we're out of the We are now out of the Patreon questions and into regular YouTube and Discord questions. So away we go. Typical Gunner Officer asks, question 2, if you are a World War II USN fleet boat skipper. Oh, hang on. No, hang on. I'll come back to that because I have a question that we have to answer about Mao that I did forget about earlier. YouTube Minecraft Watcher
Right.
asks, what if...
Please tell me this is Mal the dong, not Mal the cat.
Yes.
Yeah, Mama, we asked for time for that one, remember?
Yes. Oh, yeah, he did, didn't he? We'll wait till Mo is ready. Typical Gunner Officer asks, if you are a World War II USN fleet boat skipper and assigned to a Belau-class submarine in 1943, would you take the now fixed Mark 14 as your only main torpedo, or would you take a mixed loadout with the electric Mark 18 along the Mark 14? Also, when the US introduced the Mark 27 QT, would you take it out as your main defensive weapon against enemy escorts? So...
I'd probably want to tuber the Mark 18s until I was happy with the Mark 14s. And I would probably, when I get the Mark 27, that would replace my Mark 18 tube.
Mm-hmm.
In a nicest way, I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Take a mixed torpedo load is what boats did historically, because it's the most reliable option.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, that's not a... Ah, there we go. Okay, so very quickly, very, very quick rapid-fire round. YouTube Minecraft Watcher, the panel gets to pick a Star Wars starfighter. Which one does everyone pick? Z95 Headhunter. Basic, reliable. It works for most things. Dragon, Alex, Foxo.
E-Wing.
Mm-hmm.
Although I dispute that they would ever be used for something like traffic cops.
That's very true.
The YB-17.
Ooh, the Y. Mm-hmm.
Space V-17s.
Oh yeah, those funny things from the Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me like
Just so
H-wing.
it can do psychic damage to anyone who's ever liked Star Wars.
Yeah. Anyone else got any picks they want to bring in, or are we happy to move swiftly forwards?
Ronan says B-Wing forever.
Fair enough. I think unless anyone else has anything they want to add, we can move forwards.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say I think an A-wing would be very cool. They were pretty smoking hot, and they were awesome in some of the very early computer games. So yeah, that'd be my pick.
That's a... And also, of course, one of them has the honor of divinely honoring the Emperor by removing the Executor from existence via bridge casualty moment. Which is, of course...
I shall take your word for it.
TIE Defender's a little bit overdone, RBG. Right, okay. So, there we go. I was waiting for that. Typical Gunner Officer. Question 3, related to question 3. Okay, question 3 is related to question 3. Right, the world we live in. What kind of deck and AA... Oh, he means related to question 2. What kind of deck and AA weaponry would you fit your submarine, Belau class submarine with? 5-inch 28 wet mount, the 4-inch or the lighter 3-inch gun, and for the AA, Bofors with Oerlikon, or just Bofors, or just Oerlikon. For a Belau deck mount, you want at least one 5-inch 25. It gives you a decent punch against lone merchants, and a full Bofors AA fit. There's no point to have a Oerlikon if you've got the ability to have a full Bofors fit. Okay, next question. Nat6831. Why didn't the French deploy the DH-112 Venom-based Sud-Est Aquilion at Suez? Hang on, I'm just gonna have a look. I think that's the French version of the Venom. If anyone knows.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Why didn't they deploy them at Suez?
I assume because the range wasn't long enough. Because all those early de Havilland jets were just very short range. I mean, they were built for lightness.
Yeah, so Sea Venom, So that's okay. 3 prototypes. 2-seater version with ejection seats. 25 built. Operators. Okay. Flot 11 and Flot 16. Yeah, I can't see any information the French actually put them on any of their carriers.
Well, the French had the Vampire. I know that for sure. They had the Mark One. I don't know if they had a Venom, but if what they ask is referring to is the Vampire, it'll be a range problem. They just couldn't go very far, and it wasn't until later when they started to figure out how to put drop tanks on them properly. And even then, they were still quite short ranged, and there was always a concern about the engine because although the engine was good comparatively, we're talking early jets here. You know, if you get 8 hours out of them, 10 hours out of them before you have to overhaul them, you're doing pretty well. I suppose these will be a bit later, but maybe getting 25 hours out of them. That's not very long in a combat situation.
Yeah.
Also, think about when we're talking about in France history.
Yeah, it's 56. Yeah. When she is when the French are going into Suez, they only have 2 straight deck carriers, and neither of them are carrying jets.
And they have Algiers going on.
Yes.
And also, they have from session with building French building building their own stuff as well coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's starting up in the mid 50s, as French industry discovers.
Merci de Gaulle.
Yes, he sat there with his big Uta. Big Uta. Ruin, Timu asks, what is the panel's favourite ship of Star Trek? Oh, you guys are really feeling sci-fi tonight, aren't you?
I'm blaming Laserpig.
Yes, he did kind of...
Provoked the community into thinking about, starships and so forth.
Yes.
And he's not wrong about the Defiant, by the way. It's shit.
Yes. So, panel's favourite ship of Star Trek. Discovery, Arch, not included, and not the alternative reality movies. Ruinon's answer, the Sovereign class or most of the post-D Enterprises. So Fleet doesn't really dig into Star Trek too much, but I do have a fondness for certain Star Trek films of the original series cast. The Enterprise A is a soft favourite of mine.
I mean, the bucket.
Strictly speaking, it moves, so I take the DS9 space station because that'd be pretty comfortable. But if you actually made me pick a proper starship, then probably I'd pick a Klingon Warbird because why wouldn't you? Yeah, Klingon ships are cool.
Today's a good day to die.
Absolutely, and they'd be fun. You have a good time on it before you die.
Just stay cloaked until you're ready to go. Ha! Surprise!
Surprise, motherfucker!
Literally, it's that scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where the warbird appears and it's just Lancelot going, ha! Oh dear.
I'll take an Intrepid class.
Nothing wrong with a good Intrepid. Dragon, Foxo, any thoughts?
Well, I don't really consume Star Trek.
Consume.
I prefer my surface more grimdark.
Yes. Dragon, anything from you, or are we all right to move forwards?
Might be a tad bit busy.
Possibly. Bowmill Boy asks, as well as the Bomber Mafia, were there tensions in the interwar RAF between ex-Royal Naval Air Service and ex-Royal Flying Corps personnel? That's not an area I'm familiar with, but hopefully some of the panel members will have experience.
Sorry, could you just say that again?
Bowmill Boy asked, as well as the Bomber Mafia, were there tensions in the interwar RAF between ex-Royal Naval Air Service and ex-Royal Flying Corps personnel?
Yes. There were, because a lot of the RFC had been fed the line that the Navy was doing something underhand, which is how they got the support and supplies they did in World War One, rather than just organising the contracts. And it took them a good 15 years to stop believing that there was a mass conspiracy going on, and that the Royal Navy had just been running contracts properly, and the Army just couldn't run contracts with private industry to save their lives. Because that was half the trouble. And if you consider the whole mythical number of engines, which was the reason they put in for the whole the idea that the RAF should be an independent service, because there was going to be this huge surplus of engines which were going to allow this huge fleet of bombers to be built in 1918, and there wasn't. It was based on the idea that all the engines were being built for aircraft, none of them were spare parts. And it's only the RFC which had that policy, because the Fleet Air Arm, well, the Royal Naval Air Service it was at the time, would always order aircraft, including spare engines, in their order of the aircraft. And the RFC decided to order them separately as their separate line items. The aircraft and the spare parts, they're separate things you negotiate for. You don't negotiate at the same time for them. Because that's what the Army had historically done. And the Navy negotiated as a standard for spare parts at the same time as they negotiated for the ships. And so they carried the same thing on all their aircraft. When we buy aircraft, we buy spare parts. We stick them in a warehouse. We buy the supplies. Because spare parts are consumable things, because these things go, ships break engines. Aircraft break engines.
True enough.
And, it takes a long time. And you find actually people, they're still holding on to this belief even when they become MPs and things in the 30s. And it takes a long, long time for them to realise that no, the Navy wasn't doing anything underhand in World War One. The Navy wasn't being bad actors. They were just organising themselves properly and ordering spare parts when they were ordering their aircraft, rather than waiting till the aircraft were in service and going, "Oh, that aircraft's broken. We need a new engine. Oh, we better order one then." Who do we order it from? It caused issues.
This feels, and of course, I assume there was also some Royal Naval Air Service personnel who were not too happy that the Fleet Air Arm was under the control of the RAF, I would suspect.
Less that than quite a few of them felt that their chance of promotion were cut off by the RFC-dominated leadership. Which, to be fair, wasn't necessarily the fault again of a conspiracy. It was literally that the RFC groups were more used to dealing with the politics, the style the RAF were dealing with them, whereas the naval officers, realistically, the people who dealt with politics were the Admiralty, and everyone else was out serving far enough away from home. They didn't really get much political training. Whereas the Army usually came home in this period, especially the Expeditionary Force and those sort of things, and so they had more understanding of the political system.
Makes sense.
So, with the RAF being as politically involved as it was in the 20s and 30s to try and secure funding, those officers who are more politically capable, of course, got beneficial promotions.
Anyone else got any thoughts, comments, opinions before we move on? Because I got nothing.
I mean, only that Coastal Command was obviously there basically to troll the Royal Navy and the Fleet Air Arm as it began to emerge. I mean, it was kind of there was a constant tension between what Coastal Command would be responsible for versus what the Navy were responsible for and Fleet Air Arm would be. And part of the reason they wound up with, frankly, such dogshit aircraft was because they were starved of funds by both the Admiralty and by politicians who just didn't really understand what the future of warfare would look like and wanted to put money in battleships, which was daft.
That's actually completely and utterly wrong. That wasn't what the Navy were doing, and that's actually so wrong. I'm going to have to get into this one, as this was my PhD topic. The trouble for the Fleet Air Arm in terms versus the Coastal Command. So whereas the Royal Navy were allowed to pay for the aircraft for Fleet Air Arm, they weren't allowed to pay for the aircraft or direct the aircraft for Coastal Command. They were entirely under the RAF. They were allowed to ask them to support them. They weren't allowed to give them operational taskings. And this caused trouble. As for the battleship line, that can be more wrong about the Royal Navy in the 1920s and 30s if you tried.
Well,
The Royal
that's
Navy
a lovely
had the
discount,
most aircraft carriers of any nation in the world, and of any navy in the world. They were doing the most investment in funding and most training in funding in aircraft carriers, and they were building and they were doing the most work of any nation in the world. The trouble is their doctrine gets mucked up, and he's now disappeared. So it now sounds like I've scared him off. But I'm sure I have no sure it's just the internet, and I can't really carry on because he's not here for me to talk with.
Don't know where he's gone. It could have been communication issues again. I'll see if I get a message from him.
Probably is. But I know where he's coming from because I've seen that comment repeated so often, but it's just not the case. I know there are books which put it out, but it's just not the case. The Royal Navy was really not a battleship navy. Battleships were still useful and necessary up until, well, into World War II, because they were still the most reliable weapon system to kill other ships, but they were investing in aircraft carriers and aircraft because they were coming through, but there was just problems with the systems.
You could have got a little bit softer, Alex. You did kind of go from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds flat.
It just annoys me. That one always annoys me.
I understand that, but you did kind of go from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds flat there, Alex.
Yeah, this is the trouble with me coming on Mondays. I spend the day dealing with people.
You should have let me lead with that one.
Hey.
Yeah. Because, yeah, you did come off a little bit hard there, Alex. Just a tiny bit there. You have kind of... Thrasher has just messaged me, and he's a little bit... He says you did come off a little bit hard there. Which I can understand.
Just...
Like, I get it. Like, Tough Monday and all that, and I do understand it's sort of a... It is a line
No. I do admit, it's just... trouble is Paul Thrasher wandered into something which people... it annoys me so often because it gets said, and Paul Thrasher wandered into something which is almost the... Okay, now I need to respond, because this was my PhD topic, and it was all in, and I went in expecting to find all this stuff, and I didn't find it. And I spent the last 20 years... well, nearly... Feels like the last 20 years, arguing with people going back, no, it wasn't that way at all. It wasn't. Trouble is, I get so used to chatting with all of you.
Yes.
When we have someone new, I have to remember. Yeah, I have to remember. But yeah, it wasn't meant. It's just it's a phrase which annoys me. It's not. It's the thing is. It's something which is so often repeated, and it's something I can. It's the when you have this stuff repeated, and then the evidence there doesn't back it up.
It's just that it is a very common narrative, and it is an understandable narrative given the way mainstream media and common historiography does portray it. But when we are having guests on, just like I did say this at the start, best behavior and
just play nice, please.
And best behavior and niceties, please, because I may have lost my guest for this morning.
If they're not unhappy with me still being on here, I'll go off because it's fine. But frankly, yeah, it's just it's a phrase which sets me off. Because it's just not the case.
Hey.
But anyway, while we are right, so I'll have to keep going. AMC Woods M6 asks, what if Southeast Asia discovered and colonized the Americas before the Europeans? Ruinon, with a little subtext here, they notionally did, as the majority of indigenous First Nations peoples in the Americas migrated across the Bering Land Bridge and were assaulted by the Pacific Islanders, doing some absolutely insane long-range seamanship for their apparent tech level. Nice little subtext, Ruinon. Thank you very much. But if the traditional Southeast Asia, so Japan, China, the powers that had the large shipbuilding capability and seafaring potential, if they had discovered America, the chances are they would have gone, oh, okay, we're here. This exists. Okay, we'll add that to the maps. Home we go.
I mean, a lot of Southeast Asian peoples knew about Australia and didn't end up settling it, so they don't really have the imperative that Western Europe had to go to the Americas. Because it's the same issue China has with the treasure fleets of what does the New World give us that we don't have at home?
Yeah.
And for China, that was nothing.
Indeed,
And
just
if you're
curious.
Go on, Moe.
They were literally doing it simply because we can.
Yeah, and a lot of the voyages were to re-establish links with tributaries that had been lost and allowed to fray in the periods where China had not been a seafaring power during the Mongol invasions.
Generally speaking, the entire issue of China is never going to be a naval colonial power, simply out of the sheer fact that there is nothing China needs to acquire outside of its own border at most of its time. Because it's either busy spending its time fighting itself, or it gets everything it needs from all the tributaries around it. There's no reason for them to go looking around for new territory, being like, yeah, new land.
And if you consider that they're going to be coming from America they're going to be hitting the West Coast first. And you look at the West Coast of America, it's not particularly habitable. Especially if you're looking at
the northern half of the West Coast is decent, but generally speaking, there is, at first sight, there would probably be nothing that the Chinese would be interested in. And I'm generally just not including the Japanese simply because they are also too busy just fighting each other most of the time.
and
Yeah,
there's
basically.
not the centralization of power that you're getting Western
You
Europe.
will discover that a lot of the history of East Asia, or at least the major countries in East Asia, is very internally looking. They don't really care what's happening on the outside. They only care about what's happening on the inside.
They sort of only really care what's happening on the outside if the outside makes it their issue.
Pretty much. And just, China exists, or China acknowledged Rome exists, but they're like, cool, people we could trade with. Never. Why don't we march that way?
Yeah.
Because it's
We
just
make
not
money
something
through
they're interested in.
trading. We don't.
It's very mercantile.
But so that is China knew what was in between Rome and China.
Well, they didn't really care about that either.
There was also, all the desert and the desert.
They're just all like barbarians, don't care.
The only real nation that goes west in this period, in terms of conquest, was the Mongols.
Yeah, but they're conquering for conquering's sake.
Yes, they are, and that is true, but again, that's kind of the whole point. it takes a nation that conquers for conquering's sake to actually be bothered to do it.
So yeah, that's East Asia in a nutshell.
Yep. You should Minecraft Watcher ask, what is the panel's opinion on the story of the destroyer Yukikaze? Are there any other ships with similar levels of luck vampirism? There's one in every class. Enterprise, Warspite.
Victorious. Illustrious.
There's always stories of certain ships
Lucky
surviving.
ships.
Yeah. Just like how there's always ships that's always classified as unlucky.
This-
But yeah, I could I can give a very basic answer to that whole communist China question earlier.
Ooh, go on, man.
Right. So basically, first there's a few points. When does Mao die? Considering the question, I believe stated that the Japanese got to him, which basically means that it has to be
Yes.
between the start of the Sino-Japanese War, or which, well, it creates an interest. It really does create an interesting issue because the Communist Party's hierarchy changes quite a bit throughout the war. Early on, because Mao came into power, Mao basically became the de facto head in 35. If he dies early on, then my guess is probably going to be San Wei-Tian takes over, presumably. But it's really hard to say. Simply, it's just mostly down to the fact that the guy that holds the military power, which would be Su Di, I believe. He's a really close friend to Mao, and I have absolutely no clue how he would behave based on that situation.
His loyalty is to Mao, not anyone else in the party.
In essence, yes, because they're like really good friends. So I can't fully tell you what might happen. All I could say is that Chiang Kai-shek might actually have an easier time.
I'm sorry to
Because
say that
he may
unfortunately,
not have to deal with sorry, let me just quickly finish.
Yeah.
He may not have to deal with the annoying infiltration and constant bickering from the communists during the whole United Front phase. So you may actually see a not very exhausted Kuomintang by the end of the war, and the communists might actually have a lot more trouble. But like, it also depends on what happens, right? Because it is also very possible that the CCP gets taken over by someone else who's a little bit more closer related to the Soviets. And then we may have just, in essence, turn it into a Soviet client state.
right.
Not a very good answer, but yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so unfortunately we have lost Hardthrasher. Now I'm just gonna say.
Sure.
Now I'm just gonna say this, as I said at the start, and unfortunately not all of you were here for that. Like when we have guests on for the first time, we test the waters and we're on our absolute best behavior, even if they say things that we know to be not correct. And this isn't just directed at Alex. We hold our tongue and we address them in a way that comes at it starting from basic principles, so as to not overload the person, nor sound like we're talking down to him. Now, I understand why it happened, and I also think, again, there was a lot to be unpacked within that statement that needed to be unpacked. However, there are ways and means around doing it, and the way in which we can come at it. Now, I'm aware that Mondays Alex does have a lot to deal with. And I know
I'm going to put that on me. I'm going to put that on me, and I'm going to apologise for that one as well, because I've gone and listened to it back, and it sounded far more strident as it coming out than it did actually in my head. So I apologise on that one. I was, it's a normal Monday for me, but it's also a case of in my head that it didn't. How do I put this? The tone which it came out with was different than the tone I intended it.
Look,
and it wasn't until I heard it back I realised it. So I apologise for that one, and I apologise to Thrasher, because I disagree with it, but I didn't need it to come out quite that strong.
It also is a commonly held, it is the common history of the Second World War and the interwar period. Despite our best efforts to correct it outside of the naval history community we're all in, that is the commonly held narrative in the interwar period.
Despite the fact that in a nicest way, it is one of my nerves, but I will,
like I say,
I am sorry. It came out. It was. I went and listened it back, and I was far. I'm not usually that strident. I hope, and I don't know why my voice did that, because it was meant to come out as sort of this voice I normally speak with, and for some reason it went up an octave, and I have no idea why, and so probably sounded far worse than it should have done. But I do apologize for that one.
There we go. Yep. So it wasn't just me who thought it went God silent.
It go completely silent. I wonder what was going on.
Yeah.
I'm unsure either.
I'm dealing with the whole. It's all right. Anyway, so moving on. After that, so we've dealt with Yukaze. Then we're going to officer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the BAR would be a great infantry support weapon if the bar had even 30 or 40 round magazines and a pistol grip? Why didn't they adopt the Colt Monitor rifle into the US arsenal and fit it with 30 or 40 round magazines? And, as we've sometimes been getting in these questions, have a ruin-on little subtext. The BAR was used as an infantry support weapon. The limiting factor was not the box mags, it was the lightweight barrel. Pistol grip is much of a muchness IMO. The Monitor is a lightened version of the BAR, which will exacerbate the issues the BAR already has, and 308 is freaking heavy, which makes the saw roll less feasible than when you get an intermediate cartridge into service. But yeah, basically the bar is not heavy enough, basically.
No.
It doesn't have the...
No, that isn't the issue. The entire issue with the bar is that it's designed for a completely different role, and the US Army just pressed it into a infantry support weapon because that's what they had. The bar is designed in World War I to do walking fire.
Yes.
It is not really a light machine gun, it's an automatic rifle, hence Browning automatic rifle.
Yes.
Very different thing. It is very heavy for a rifle, yes, but honestly, the entire issue of the bar really just stems from the fact that the U.S. was really reluctant about adopting new stuff,
Hmm.
and it just decided, how do we make the bar better into this brand new role that we now have to have a weapon for? So they took a look at what they thought was the best infantry support weapon in World War One, which was the Lewis gun. So they gave it a bipod. They took out the select fire. They changed it to a fast firing mode and a slow firing mode for the A2 model, and then they just pressed on with it. It's just not a good infantry support weapon. That's it. Now, I'm not slamming its surface history. It's great because the U.S. troops were fantastic with it. But is it the best weapon that they could have had? Probably not. But it's something the U.S. Army didn't spend any time investing in, so bars you get. Although genuinely, I would like to see a Bren gun in 30-06. That would be a interesting weapon for the to use as a infantry support weapon for the U.S. Army instead.
That they didn't make like 12 of them in 30-06 for the US to try out. And US weren't really a fan of the Bren, so
yeah, it's just mostly down to the fact that they have different ideas in terms of how infantry support weapon operation goes, but eventually, I personally do think that a Bren in 30-06 might do them a bit better than the A2 Browning. Not saying it's a bad gun, it's just not very good at the role that the U.S. Army pressed it into. This is just saying, John Moses Browning was told to make a thing for walking fire, and he made a thing for walking fire.
Yep.
Make it do anything else is sort of... Why?
Yes, please do not. Dear. Have a look.
Next question.
Yes, probably. Bowmeal Boy, what if the French never leave the Je ne Cole? How does this affect World War I, international politics, and World War II? The French Navy ceases to be an article taken seriously by the navies of the world. If they really dig into Je ne Cole and they don't come out of it, they sink to a level possibly below the Ottoman fleet when it acquires its dreadnoughts. Like,
if it acquires its dreadnoughts.
Well, there's no reason to change anyone else's. Well, not the Ottomans anyway. But at that point, the dominant power in the Mediterranean is the Royal Navy and the Italians, with the Austrians sat in the Adriatic attempting to break out. The French have no way to contest control of the high seas and defend their coasts, at least not from distant blockade. The best thing they could hope for would be to try and lean into large armoured cruisers and faster battleships. Or possibly the battle cruiser as a concept. But even so, without a battle line to back it up, which Xenocolis says, if you take the doctrine as written, you don't need, then yeah, at that point you're basically you've got a France that's really, yeah, it's on the plus side, it might mean more money for the French army, and it could lead to the somewhat amusing concept of the French actually adopting that aircraft carrier proposal they were presented with in the 1900s for a keel-up flat-deck aircraft carrier that they didn't end up adopting. But such an asset would fit into Je ne Cole, so they may end up being the first country on the planet to actually adopt and field a keel-up aircraft carrier.
France also might start having its empire picked at.
Yes, because without the ability to... Well, they'll have cruisers. They'll still have a competent cruiser force, both armoured
I'm
and
thinking
protected.
stuff like the Morocco crisis.
Yeah,
If the French can't even put even some form of battleship in
well,
the crisis there, it's not even going to be a fight.
The Je ne Cole does allow for fast capital ships, be they armoured cruisers or fast battleships. And the French government at the time did have plans for basically almost not proto-battle cruisers, because they are not battle cruisers, but almost, if you can...
Fast armoured cruisers.
No. Lightly armoured fast battleships. As we discussed, honestly, on brew ships. That concept of a battleship in framing, but with much less armoured protection than contemporaries, trading in for 2 to 3 knots of speed. There were plans considered by the French Admiralty for such vessels.
Oh God!
But they were never adopted.
You're gonna make it real. The thing I gave people was the theoretical example last night of if it had battleship framing, but but battle cruiser armoring, so it'd be a light armored light armored fast battleship rather than a fully armored battle cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually making the French have it.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yes.
Actually, they'll probably be better at dealing with air threat than the actual... Because subdivision is better for dealing with bomb damage than armor, necessarily.
Yes.
But it's still scary to make a justification for it.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, what's next?
Next is... Because I can't really predict what would happen beyond the pre-Dreadnought era. I don't know if they'd adopt battle cruisers or not. Gunnery Officer, what if in July 42, somehow prior to the beginning of Operation Watchtower, the Marines were issued with M1 Garands instead of the 1903 rifle? Would the Marines with the Garands have more impact on the Battle of Guadalcanal, Tulagi, and the other islands? And now we have a ruin on subtext. Realistically, they aren't going to be able to implement it in time. Japan is fundamentally fighting a defensive war versus the US after Guadalcanal and Midway. And the additional rate of fire... I was reading that. I was reading that. I was halfway through.
Basically, he's saying with the additional fire rate the Garand offers, there might be logistical issues, especially the fact that the Marines got stranded on the island for a good while.
Runa misread it, which is why they removed
However, if they were issued with the M1 Garands, it probably wouldn't make that much of a difference.
You're still looking at small arms, and both are relatively slow firing single shot rifles.
World War II is in the era where small arms just doesn't generally provide enough of an impact to the actual possible outcome of a battle or war.
Yeah. Now what?
Well,
it helps. A Marine would definitely feel more safe with a Garand.
They can, but it's not the type of battle where the small arms are going to matter.
No.
Because stuff like, especially city fighting, weaponry, small arms do matter. But not this sort of island hopping campaign.
To be fair, if you're dealing with a Banzai charge, the ability to just keep pulling the trigger on a Garand can help.
It will help the Marine feel safer himself. However, for the actual overarching battle, it wouldn't matter, because the best way to stop Banzai charges with a combination of machine gun and mortar fire, which was exactly what happened.
Yes, indeed.
It's probably even worse than that, though.
It is it like it will help initially, but considering what did happen to the Marines and their logistics basically gotten neutered for a good while, I don't want to imagine what will happen when the orders up top starts telling the Marines manage your fire.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're gonna have maybe a clip to go through.
Yeah.
Because the British actually had some very interesting tests with the Lee Enfields, where they put the Lee Enfield against the M1 Grand, and it was a question of how many shots can a rifleman put downfield. The Grand was about twice as many. Then they did a bunch of tests with, okay, how many accurate shots can they put downfield? And there's very little difference. And that difference gets shorter and shorter the higher quality of the troops, which is an interesting side fact.
It mostly just comes down to the follow-up shot. That's the one and only difference between the two. A Garand is going to have an easier time with a follow-up shot.
Yeah. But it's still an issue of still hard limited with those kind of rifles of how long does it take for you to reset position to fire accurately again.
Yep.
That's what happens with full rifle cartridges. 30-06 is a big ground.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Which is actually where bolt action has an advantage. Stuff like the linear motion.
Mm-hmm.
It depends, though. The big thing about bolt action rifle is that there's nothing to actually eat the full impact of the round.
Yeah, but a lot of
There is more
rifle.
felt recoil. There's more felt recoil on the bolt action. But yeah,
it's a lot more linear recoil, which is the advantage.
pretty much. There's much less things moving inside.
Yeah, because one of the things that you notice if you shoot rifles like AKs or FALs, you notice that when you're trying to shoot accurately and quickly, you do notice that the whole gas piston thing does lift the front of the barrel up when doing sustained fire. Because you get weird forces. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what those forces are called.
What's next?
My instructor's going to shoot me.
Next question is... So that was that. Beep. Whale Boy, did the USN lose any warships in the Vietnam War? In terms of full-on warships, I don't think so. I know they suffered some monitor losses during some of the riverine operations, but in terms of blue water USN warships, I don't think they lost any. I will just look that up to make sure, but I don't think they did.
No, I'm pretty sure they did not lose anything.
Not as far as I could see.
Ships were damaged, but...
No, I don't think they lost any
solid.
ships actually lost.
No, I'm not saying it.
Did the North Korean had any sort of large naval units that
North
could
Koreans?
do the damage?
They had torpedo boats, the North Vietnamese did.
Or North Vietnamese, sorry.
Yeah, they had torpedo boats, the North Vietnamese did. But I think they had one or two old destroyers, but I don't think they had... I don't think they had any,
Closest is the USNS card, which was a Bow-class escort carrier, and that was being used as a transport service vessel, I think.
Mm.
And it was sunk by Vietnam Cong commandos. They climbed out of a sewer tunnel and attached 2 explosive charges to its hull. It sank. It was then refloated and towed to the Philippines for repairs. I'm not sure that probably there were people lost, so probably that does count. But it was alongside at the time. It was by commandos, so
Yeah. It is technically a loss, quote unquote.
but it's more of a special operations than a strike or something.
Yes. This is true. Right. Okay, so... Typical officer, follow up to question 5. What if the Japanese captured one of the Grands and made a copy of it, the Type 4 rifle, much earlier than IRL, and issued it to their troops in large numbers by 1943? How would the war in the Pacific changed?
It wouldn't.
It fundamentally does not. The issue the IJN has is
More
not
people
small
died. That's
arms.
about it.
Yeah, it's not small arms. The IJN has issues with basically everything else aside from small arms. Ironically enough, Japanese small arms are good enough, and so at that point, that's literally all that matters. You don't gain anything by meaningfully improving Japanese small arms situation to their warfighting potential.
You probably actually heard them.
It's the same logistic situation.
Yep.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, isn't part of the M1 Grand lubricated?
Most
That's-
semi-auto stuff are lubricated.
No, I don't mean like the self-contained lubricants that you get later on. Never mind. I'll figure it out later.
Right. So that was that. Boop. YouTube Minecraft watcher, what was the process protocol for captured enemy vessels? What was their fate after such thing post 1900? The problem is, by the time you even get into the early Ironclad period, and especially, and even possibly prior to that, with the advent of and proliferation of shell guns across fleets, the object of naval action very much became far more of the destruction / sinking of the enemy vessel rather than the capture of it. Basically down to the fact that that would be the likely outcome if you fought an action with the correct level of gusto to try and survive it. Just
Yeah,
because
but-
of the...
There's also
Capture
another
a
good
ship.
reason for it.
To capture a
Yeah.
ship doesn't mean you've taken it in combat, though.
No,
So
I was going to get
When
to
it comes
that
to this
bit.
question.
Yeah, I was going to get to that bit as well. But, yeah, Alex, you have something to
But-
say?
Well, yeah, the thing is that if you damage the hull integrity of a steel ship or iron ship enough to put it out of combat action, you probably damage enough to sink it. Whereas if you damage a wooden ship enough to put it out of combat action, because wood floats naturally anyway, it stays afloat. So this is where part of the problem comes in, because your wooden ships are very hard to sink. In many ways, your steel and iron ships naturally do sink.
Yes. Yes, this is true. They do, in fact, have a tendency to fall over and sink. Right.
All right, now I will come on because I've seen the next question and I'm baffled.
Typical gunnery officer, what is your opinion on the Johnson
I mean, but
M1941?
didn't answer the second part that I said about the question.
Oh, yes, sorry. Quite right. So in terms of vessels that are captured as a result of either their prizes awarded as a result of a treaty,
Or you've taken the
or...
port they're in.
Yeah, that depended on the navy and the circumstances. So the Japanese, in the early part of their imperial period, 1897 through 1910, did take prizes into their fleet as active warships and did spend money refitting them. There are
Sea ships
Russian...
of the first Pacific expulsion
Yeah,
of the Russian Navy that were effectively refloated at Port Arthur and brought into service. There are also a number of Chinese service ships they
the poor old
yoinked.
battleship Ding Yuan is being dragged along to Tsushima.
Quite literally in one case.
But
Generally speaking, though, unless like you're actively in a war and you need as many hulls as possible and you can make something shitty work, you'll probably do so. See my reply in rambling text. If you have a use for it that it can, like, if there is a need that it can meet, generally speaking, a competent navy would swap out as much of its swappable systems as possible, like guns, radio systems, maybe labels on the engine room and whatnot, purely for the ease of use, but also ease of logistics. You don't want to steal an enemy ship that has a completely different caliber of gun to your entire battle fleet and suddenly have to scavenge enemy weapons. No, that's a waste of time. You'll just swap it out for your own. It's just easier.
Like, yeah, but this is the thing. Like, usually navies that will take on prizes are navies that have desperate need of hulls and need them now. So the Germans and Italians during the Second World War, with what French ships under construction they could get hold of, had continuous plans to attempt to integrate them into the fleet, into their fleets, to use them against the British, whom they were lacking hull strength against. But that's just... But usually, if you were a navy on equal or superior footing to an opponent and you captured a prize, odds are you would examine the ship to find out what made it tick, gather as much intelligence from the ship in terms of capability, systems, etc., and then you would break that ship up. Because that ship is made of valuable materials you can funnel into your own war effort or make money from by selling for scrap.
It's one of the things that both the Royal and US navies did at the end of World War II when ships were allotted as war prizes. We effectively looked at the Italian ships we got and were like, these are pretty cool. How do they work? Cool, they work like that. All right. They're kind of surplus to requirements, so goodbye. The USN had no need of other ships, so they found out how the German ships didn't work by having, Prinz Eugen fucking explode all but one of her boilers en route to the US and decided the Coast Guard doesn't need a heavy cruiser. We'll nuke her.
Yeah, this is the thing. The only navy that basically had very little choice but to take the prizes it was allocated into service, well, the two navies that basically had very little choice / need to were the French.
Three.
Were the French and the Soviets.
The Italians got some. Well, actually, no, they just had ships transferred because the US was like, we've got so many ships we don't know what to do with.
But that was post-war.
Italy's a friend now. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was gonna say the French and the Soviets above everything else.
They needed the extra tonnage. They really did. They needed the injection of
Hell, the West Germans got a couple of things. The West Germans actually refloated a bunch of wartime, was it Type 7s or Type 9s they had? That were sunk in one of the canals or in the harbours, and they were just like, okay, these still look good. So they refloated them and put them into service, and I think they served until like the 70s. It was kind of insane.
Yeah, the French took some Type 9s into service, I think.
They really wanted a Type 21.
I don't know if they got one.
They didn't get one, but they really wanted one.
Yeah, they really, 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 really wanted one.
But Post 1900, it was very much a case of, do we need this? Yes. What can it do? It can do this thing. All right. Fit it out with our stuff so it can do that, so that it's not a logistical nightmare to keep running. Cool. Off you go. You really only start seeing that stop happening in major navies after the Second World War. I mean, even in the modern day, the only nation that I think even considered / doing that was North Korea, funnily enough, when they stole a US, it was like a spy ship. I can't remember the actual designation that it had, but it was listening in on some of their stuff, got too close and got captured. And even then, they only keep it around as a, look at this, big imperialist power that fucking oopsie-daisied their ship. It's ours now. Can't do anything with it because their navy is a joke for now. But, yeah, the Pueblo.
Yeah. Right. So, we've kind of answered that question quite neatly. Typical Gunnery Officer asks, we're going to be ending, by the way, earlier than usual, owing to some things I have to go and deal with this evening before I start work tomorrow morning. So we'll be ending at 7:30, so I am going to ask that Ruinon do what she does best and get all the questions squared away if she can in the stream Q&A while we're still going on, so they're all set for Friday. But, very quickly, while we are still ongoing, Typical Gunnery Officer asks, what is your opinion on the Johnson M1941 light machine gun? How would you compare it to the FG42? Do you think its side magazine makes it unfavourable for a standard US infantry weapon, or was it because the Johnson was only available in limited numbers? I have no dog in this fight, so I'm going to let Hood take it away.
So from what I recall, and this is I can't find the study anymore because I'm stupid. The genuine only issue that most people testing the Johnson LMG had with it was the fact that it was a single stack magazine. The contemporary LMG in service by the US military at the time was the Browning automatic rifle, the BAR, the M1918. All versions of that had a double stack magazine. It was heavier, but it also was a bit tougher. It was a bit denser. It was easier to stow. If you look at the actual magazine, let me grab a picture of the Johnson LMG real quick.
Just a flat pan thingy.
In the Rambling Text chat. Look how fucking big that magazine is.
It is a, what could be termed, unit.
It is a unit. Not just because it's, large. It's still 30-06.
Large. It's not hard. I can't speak!
Yeah.
I was going to make a joke and I can't do it!
It's a bit chunky. In the wrong direction.
30-06.
If it was like a double stack, it would actually be pretty well received, because that was genuinely their only real complaint. The other one was I believe not the foresight. The foresight was deceptively tough. The rear aperture sights were a little bit loose and flimsy at times, so they lose their zeros occasionally.
Generally, it's a well-liked special operations weapon.
It was used quite a lot by certain Ranger units that dropped during D-Day. It was also the Johnson LMG saw very limited service. The Johnson battle rifle, the competitor to the M1 Garand, saw a lot of use by both US Special Forces and US Aligned Forces in the Pacific. One of the biggest users was actually the Dutch. They loved that thing, and I will admit, I do really, really like both Johnson weapons. They're actually really nice. They're really good. They shoot well. They're actually deceptively easy to maintain. People look at it and think, oh, the heat shield forward of the breech and leading up to the barrel looks complicated. No, it's just a screw in. It's like a fucking M2 Browning quick change barrel. It was pretty ahead of its time. The only real issue was that, unlike N blocks, which could be mass manufactured, they had a very goofy feeding system that was actually quite complicated to manufacture. The rifle itself, however, was superb to shoot. Issues with manufacturing were what bottlenecked it the most. But yeah, the reason that I was very confused by the question was because you compared it to the FG42, a weapon that is only really comparable in the fact that it's a side stack magazine. There's the Johnson rifle in chat. I love it. It's fucking nice. It's a good aesthetic. I wish I could own one. The FG42 isn't really the same kind of weapon. The FG42 is a goofy. We wanted SGG44, but not. It was like it was a goofy. What if we made an assault rifle sort of thing? It's kind of stupid. I only really like the FG42 for Wolfenstein because it's the best gun in the game. They're not really comparable outside the fact that they are large caliber rifles with a side stack magazine and a giggle switch. That's kind of it. I wouldn't personally compare the two of them in any real footing. Chief among which being that the FG42, I believe, only comes with a 20 round magazine. I think later models had a 25 that was like readapted. The Johnson, I believe, was a 30 round magazine from the get go, which is why it's so fucking long.
I mean, it's really hard to compare considering the fact that the FG42 is like, I think it's like 2 pounds. No, actually, it's like 3-4 pounds lighter than a Johnston.
It's also, yeah, the FG42 was, again, a bit ahead of its time. It was one of the first, like, almost full polymer weapons, or full, like, not wooden, like, heavy metal.
Yeah.
Not polymer, but, like, I can't think of the word. Brain is blank. But, like, it was deceptively light. It was also composite, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. It was also it was essentially a paratrooper-only weapon. It was only really issued to certain Fahlstrom Jaeger units that dropped out of airplanes or planned to drop out of airplanes. By the time they actually got them, it was too late for them to use them because air dominance, Lamau. But yeah, it's not really comparable, I would say. They're both cool weapons, I'll give them that. But yeah, it's goofy.
Honestly, the biggest problem with the Johnson is just it came around just a really bad time. The U.S. Army is pretty much already nearly finished up tooling up for their M1 Garand. It's just like,
well, it's more a case of like for the Johnson like actual rifle, the 10 round like stripper clip fed one. It was a very late to get it, which is why I only saw like limited service use. The LMG was even later. Production and like testing earlier, but like it started to see like limited proliferation too late to really matter, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I wish it did better, but like F.
It wasn't going to really change much. It doesn't really exactly do anything that much superior to a Garand in the grand scheme of things. The LMG might be more interesting, just simply down to the fact that the bar is just old.
The issue with the bar, which is the issue that plagued it until it was fully like removed from service. Fun fact, that was in the 70s. They were still issuing old and the latest production bars to CIDG, the Civilian Irregular Defense Group in Vietnam. They got so many old weapons.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the only thing that like the Johnson had over the Garand was it was more metal like than wood, so it was a little bit lighter, had 2 extra rounds that it could shoot before it needed to be fully reloaded, and I believe actually came with quick attachment like lugs and mountings for a short range scope, like the M2 scope I think it was, that typically saw mountings on the Garand anyway, and a lot of M1 carbines, and later a lot of M2 carbines. It came with that from the get-go, because it was like meant to be that sort of adaptable, funny thing.
Makes sense.
On the other hand, Johnson really doesn't like a bayonet.
No,
No,
the
it
barrel
does
was a
not.
bit weak.
Yeah.
It was a bit weak for a bayonet lug, which is why it didn't really come with one.
Yeah. Bone Meal Boy asks, what if Tiger and Blake are ready to go down to the Falklands in 82? Then they are an invaluable asset to the task force, especially if
Then
they
I
are...
guess the SAS have another helicopter carrier to use.
Oh yeah,
I guess.
I mean, honestly, that they are a helicopter operational asset that can sit in San Carlos water with a degree of safety to them. Because
so
They'll probably want a frigate to guard them against missile attack, but they can use their 6-inch guns to basically chew up anything that comes into the bay.
it's not so much 6-inch due to tracking, it's the 3-inch automatic that's really going to mess up the Skyhawks.
hell yeah.
The 6-inch is, like, if the 6-inch can lock them up at range and nail them, then sure.
Cool.
But it's going to be the 3-inch automatic and the...
Oh, I'd
radar
only really use the 6-inch to deal with any like surface ships. I wasn't going to use them in an anti-aircraft role.
Yeah,
they might be a bit too slow for tracking that.
Yeah,
but 3 inches, though, I agree. Absolutely, we'll lock down any.
The real thing is, though,
air assets flying.
You've basically removed the need for Atlantic Conveyor. Because if you strip out the ASW helos from Blake and Tiger, they can absolutely carry enough Chinooks between them to make Atlantic Conveyor a non-needed asset. Which can either be used for other things, or...
I'd still want to fly the Chinooks out of a proper carrier because of the space. I'd want to fly, like, I don't know, Pumas.
I mean, either way, it gives you the hangar space in the fleet to do that shuffle. So let's say you can move the Chinooks to Hermes and move some of Hermes' Pumas to Blake and Tiger. You get what I mean, Hood? You've got the space.
The extra space, basically.
Yeah, the extra hangar space to do that shuffle.
Extra slots. If only, right?
But yeah.
But yeah, the big thing's going to be those 6-inch guns. They're going to be really quite handy for fire mission.
Something. Oh, we don't need to send the Gurkhas and scare the shit out of the Argentines. We just send in Tiger and she'll shell the shit out of them with 6-inch guns until they surrender.
Honestly, yeah. 20 rounds, 6-inch rapid, please.
The issue with that is that the Argentines are entrenched in Port Stanley in amongst civilians.
It's not so much Port Stanley where they're going to be useful.
Yeah,
and you don't want to start unloading with 6-inch guns.
Well, no, they're not. We're not sending
large
them to Port
concentrations of Argentines around.
I'm talking about the guys down on the other island. I can't remember the fucking name of it now.
West Falklands, you mean?
No, the smaller ones.
But even so, there was like
the South Sandwich Islands,
possibly. But bear in mind, there were actions during the Falklands where 4-5 gun support was called for. So there are scenarios where we can absolutely go, why are we calling in 4-5? We have 6.
You call whoever is available, man.
Well, yeah, but like, you know, like you don't have to. Like they had to move the 4-5 ships into position to deliver that fire. Now you might have to do the same thing with Blake and Tiger, but you wouldn't have to move them as far. And you wouldn't have to, and it would probably be a more effective bombardment. Although they will probably have to ration their. I don't know how many. Maybe Dr. Clark. How many 6-inch rounds did the British actually have in 82 in inventory? Do you have a rough idea?
Thousands, because they hadn't actually probably finished getting rid of them.
So
they have a full load, because theoretically Tiger and her sister were reserves. They cut full loadouts, multiple full loadouts sitting in reserve for them.
Makes sense.
And with their reduced gun numbers because of the conversion to helicopter cruisers, even more ammunition for those forward guns.
Yeah, I mean, the problem's not going to be ammunition at that point. Then it's going to be barrel life and barrel lining.
Mix of barrel life and actually getting the guns for the ammunition up to that forward gun mount.
Also, you've got multiple spare barrels you can take with them.
Oh, that's even better then. Yeah. That's even better.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, but isn't the main issue with this the fact they've got to keep the 6-inch autoloaders working?
No, not in this particular case.
And they weren't the most reliable when they were new.
Well,
and they're not new and they're not in particularly good condition.
Which autoloaders is this for? The Tigers?
The twin 6-inch autoloaders.
Actually, that was one of the better ones. It was
the
3 inches had more trouble.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but they actually had pretty reasonable reliability.
And also, one of those.
My concern is with the age on those autoloaders. They haven't been particularly taken care of.
The thing with the autoloaders and their unreliability, it's like I've said with the Worcesters and the Tigers. The problem with their reliability comes down to when you try to run them full chat. when you try to push them to the rates they're supposed to be able to reach. That's when they really start having issues. That's when they really start having problems. Now, obviously, that does make them technically a failure because they can't deliver on the higher rates of fire they promised in a reliable manner. But if you're prepared to run the system at a lower rate of fire, to give you a sort of rounds per minute you might expect out of a normal 6-inch ship that's not a fully automatic system, the gun will happily chatter away without too many issues or problems.
Yeah,
And in
that's
this
my
particular
concern.
and in this
Because those guns have a lot of moving parts in them. They haven't been taken care of particularly well. And they were reliable when they were new. They were new 30 years ago.
I mean, that is a valid point, but I would point out they will probably work the guns very cautiously. Given that the positions they're going to be engaging are static fortifications, they're not likely to move, you can afford to run those guns slowly. Not strain the systems, like, say... So, let's say, whereas in their heyday it might have been 6 rounds in a 1 to 2 minute period. In the Falklands, this Falklands scenario we're discussing, you might say 6 rounds delivered over a 5-minute period. Which I know is slow, but it's a level of fire that's not going to overly stress the guns. And politely, those Argentinians aren't going anywhere in 5 minutes.
Yeah, but just as a Sea Dodders, while from what I've read, a lot of the components, especially the limited use moving components, were end of life and worn out. So the guns themselves could be in good condition, but the moving parts were worn out. And they, from what I've read,
Karen,
that
there are... Sorry, Karen Foxer.
like they can be good condition, but just because they're in good condition doesn't mean they're going to be reliable, because as far as I'm aware, by the 80s, they very much needed to be overhauled mechanically.
I'd say their original design was between 15 to 20 rounds per minute. So if you cut it down to 5 rounds a minute, you probably need to do about a minute's firing, and you fired enough. You fired 10 6-inch rounds on a target. That's probably enough.
Yeah.
Considering your accuracy.
That target is gone, Dr. Clark? Would that be an accurate thing to say?
Yeah, it's a range of 23 kilometers. So the other thing about it is, if you think about... I've just been sort of thinking this through in terms of the engagement distance. For it, I'm thinking... God, I've got my Falklands map up in front of me. It's refusing to give me the range from Stanley to San Carlos, but quite literally, I considering you've got up to a 23-kilometer range in terms of your fire plan, yeah, you can be hitting targets pretty much with virtual impunity from the local land-based artillery using those 6-inch guns. So they would have been useful in that regards. But again, it's the reason they actually didn't use the Tigers and didn't activate them for the Falklands War is down to the state the machine plant was in, not the guns. The guns had been
a number of personnel issues for technicians for both ships.
Yeah, that was also the thing which meant you couldn't get them ready in time, because the machine plant hadn't been properly looked after, because the machine plant had not really been... Some machine plants hadn't been really being used. They had some... It's one of those scenarios where the guns were actually in better condition, and the reason the guns are in better condition is a really weird reason. But basically, 2 of the people who were looking after the ships were former gunnery chiefs on those guns, and so they knew what they were doing in maintaining them. And so the 6-inch guns on both were found to be in fairly decent working order. But they knew the guns, and they knew what they were doing to maintain them themselves. The rest, they were having to rely on the dockyard and the other people to assist in maintenance of the ships, and they weren't as committed, let's say. So whilst Foxo is perfectly correct, those guns were nearing their end of life. In some ways, they are probably in their best maintained state they'd ever been. Wouldn't be something I want to lose for a long engagement, but they were probably also... It's kind of like you've got, the old classic car out of the garage, and it's been fettled and loved for the last 20 years.
But
it's not.
It means it's not been driven, but it's been fettled and well cared for. So, and it's been turned over and oiled and those sort of things. So it's a case of it's probably going to work. How reliably and how long it's going to work for, that's another matter.
Yep.
I suppose it would be a bit embarrassing if the 6-inch guns just stop.
That would be somewhat embarrassing, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I recognise that line drawing.
Right. Next question. What if the Italians built the Littorios like this? And then he's shown an image which I will put up on screen on Ramblings. Here we go. Not that one.
Imagine so as I recall, one of the things that actually this drawing, because this I believe originates from an Italian yard, I can't remember the name of it, but this was originally also then, or this was eventually reused as the design drawing for the is it the Project 21 battleships for the Soviet Navy that they asked for?
No, they're based off Nelson. I'm pretty sure more.
No, but they requested them for an Italian yard though, not the British.
Assuming that the Littorios are obviously somewhat more modernized form of that ship with probably 90 mils either side of the superstructure, whether they would have those quad 6-inch mounts after, I'm not sure. They probably would have the Italian triple 6-inch mounts.
No, that's a legitimate thing. Especially of this period.
Oh no, it was between Britain and I thought it was
in
the
this
Italians.
period, the Italians were looking at mounting quad guns on cruisers. In particular, so they were looking at a 141 aft 2 quad turret design for cruisers, as well as also on some of their ultra small battleship things, where you would have the 2 large caliber turrets in the middle, and you'd have, say, 2 of these 6-inch 4-1 6-inch aft. If they actually built them like this, then yeah, you might see them more with the triple, because none of those
seriously,
really
it's a fucking black transparent. For fuck's sake.
Also, is it just me, or is that third turret in a different position on the top to the bottom?
Yes.
Like,
it's mounted
one of those images is facing aft,
forward.
one of them is facing
on the side drawing. It's like the upper drawing. It's slightly further aft, but also closer to the middle turret. Whereas in the other one, it's the other turrets are moved forward, and it's moved forward with them, but can also traverse forward. Funny.
Yes. Littorio is all forward.
I mean, if the Italians built the Littorios to just be 15-inch armed like Nelsons, the French would have been quite concerned.
I'm also thinking, why have they done this necessarily? Because unfortunately, there's no stats there, apart from just a drawing.
It looks like there's 117 something.
Yeah, but there's nothing like how fast it goes, these sort of things.
No, I know.
If I could get, because I'm almost curious, did they do this to try and make the ship go faster because less citadel space, maybe? Or is this a weight-saving idea, or...
I'm just presuming we're transplanting all the rest of the Littorio stats over.
Then like that means then there's literally...
Like I say, if the Littorios were just 15-inch armed Italian Nelsons, The French might be a bit concerned about them again.
Also, the fact though that
If you can,
this thing has no AA. Sorry, just give me a sec. It's got no AA, none of the Italian 90 mils, so it's got none of their heavy AA.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
This also looks like an initial like design study.
yeah, it's more a sketch than necessarily an actual thing. I'll see if I can...
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Definitely have space for them.
Well, it's more I'm looking at it and thinking, okay, so this is a way to probably maximize the armor around your magazine and guns, because you have shrunk the area you need to cover. You can also, to an extent, operate your boilers at a higher temperature if you want, with needing to have, because you can more easily separate them from the shells and shell magazines.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, to my mind, the triple quad aft is probably unnecessary. If they want to go, they could go in a. Considering they've already got them on, already got 3 levels of deck aft. If they're going to be 6-inch guns, you could mount them in line and super firing. So that would give you far more of a fire plan, both aft and sideway, and to cover each side. So it'd give you 12 guns for each side to be able to cover most of each side, and 12 guns. Realistically, it's got options. Realistically, it has options.
Mm-hmm.
I found it.
I can see why the Italians didn't go for it, but it would have been interesting. Dragon?
So, this is actually a design for a 26,000-ton medium displacement battleship.
Ooh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Likely mounting 320mm main gun.
Right.
100,000 shaft horsepower proposed. Yeah, because this is literally where one of the designs I mentioned earlier came from. It's the same series. I'll stick in rambling text. It might seem very familiar to World of Warships players.
Oy.
The final one is starting to get more towards Littorio as we know her.
Yes.
But, so, yeah. If they're replaced with these, all of a sudden you've went from a 45,000-ton battleship to a 26,500 one.
Yeah.
With 320mm main guns.
There goes your hope of matching anything the British have, because yes, you're better than some of the older British ships, technically, but you're lacking that 15-inch capital ship that can square off against anything the British can throw at you.
I'm back.
So...
And there's the problem.
Yeah. You've basically... Because there were a thing basically to counter the Dunkirks. And considering these are designed in around 1935, there's still some hope for the treaties.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're replacing Littorios with those, goodbye Italian Navy?
It may also scare the French into ordering 3 Richelieus off the bat rather than 2, and then delaying for Gascoigne.
Yeah, possibly.
In which case, again, goodbye Italian Navy.
But the French have the capability of building 3 Richelieus at the same time.
I believe they did. However, they were also desperate to have a carrier, and I believe that one of the slipways that would have been taken up by Gascoigne was being used for Joffre. I might be mixing up certain hulls and dockyard spaces, but I believe that was the case, which is why you only got 2 off the bat, because they were waiting for the slipway to open up for the 3rd one to be laid down.
And then in that time, they decided to redo the design a bit.
It would have been the same length, it was just they rearranged
the main battery would change.
The main battery and some of the internal machinery because they moved the superstructure forward slightly.
Yes, it is. Right, brilliant. Fantastic. Right, so, with the end of that last question, and with Ronan now having successfully finished the transfer of questions over, it is now time to end. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I hope you've all enjoyed as much as I have today. Despite a few hiccups, it's mostly gone okay. Obviously, if you are a Twitch user, please do check out me on Twitch. Obviously, I do Rule the Wave streams on a Tuesday, and usually Railroader streams on a Wednesday when the servers run, but unfortunately last week I was too tired. Hopefully this week we'll be on it like a carb on it, but we shall see. Do check out Lord Hardthrasher. His channel is linked in both the video title and the video description, so please do go and check him out. Great guy, does some fantastic videos on aviation, and is currently working through both a series on the Bomber War and a cracking series on the battles around Kohima and the Japanese invasion of Burma. But without further ado, take care, everybody. Although Ruidon has asked me to leave the panel open, and I will. Take care, everyone. I will now slide away to do what I need to do. And I hope you all have an excellent evening. Take care, everyone. And I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye!